Behold, the divine light guides us all.
I, Ezra, saw upon the Mount Zion a great people whom I could not number, and they all praised the Lord with songs. And in the midst of them there was a young man of high stature, taller than all the rest. And upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. So I asked the angel and said, Sir, what are these? He answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing, and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of Yahweh. Now are they crowned and receive palms. Then said I unto the angel, What young person is it that crowneth them, and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of Yahweh, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord. Then the angel said unto me, Go thy way, and tell my people what manner of things, and how great wonders of the Lord thy power thou hast seen.
Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven.
Matthew chapter 26, verse 29. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, which is wine, which is made from grapes, as you know. And our Lord, he loves to drink, man. That's something that our Lord took pleasure in when he was here on this planet Earth. He's not going to do it anymore until he returns to do it with you. Showing just how much he loves his elect, man. He's not even going to drink until he does it again with you. I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So what a moment that's going to be, man.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers, and peace and blessing and salutation to the hopeful leg out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful leg, the believers, the listeners, whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into today is to continue on in the book of Acts. All right, made to the 18th chapter. You know, in this chapter we see, that the word, has been, so controversial, the gospel, within, all right, these Greco-Roman city-states, okay? And even in Rome itself, we see that the Jews get expelled, from Rome, all right, during the 18th chapter. Okay. So let's read it, and then I got a little history to go into dealing with, what was going on, all right, during the time of during the time of Acts, all right, in Rome, and what was the reason for the expulsion. Okay. So let's read here. So let's go to the book of Acts chapter 18 and verse 1. And it says, Then Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. All right. So now we're seeing, his first interaction with Corinth, which we know Corinth, will be the longest epistle, that Apostle Paul will write, and he stayed in current, for a while. Now it says there he became acquainted with a Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, who had recently arrived from Italy with his wife Priscilla. They had left Italy when Claudius Caesar deported all Jews from Rome. Okay, and you go into Claudius. This was the Caesar that adopted Nero. It was like his stepson. The son of one of his wives. Okay, and he adopted Nero. So Claudius was a Caesar. Right before Nero. He came after Caligula, his nephew, and he ruled right before Nero. You go into their history. So you see that the gospel, has been despised. It's looked at as uh they was looked at as what they call it, seditious. You know, this is a term we've been hearing a lot lately. Especially in America, with different what they call hate speech. They're throwing their word sedition around, and that's something else that they can attempt to charge us with. Okay, sedition, treachery, all right, domestic, tea people. Okay, so it's gonna get to a point to where the government, okay, is gonna address what we're doing. Okay, and we see this in the 18th chapter. It made to the point where the government, okay, had to make a move against the word. Okay, and as we understand fully, the devil, and this time he's gonna come with great wrath. Okay, and we'll get there. This is Acts 18 and 3 said Paul lived and worked with them. They were tent makers just as he was. So Paul was a tent maker. That was his profession. He worked, with his own hands, and that was likened to a skilled trade. Okay. Matter of fact, let's get a little backdrop on what's going on. Let me see. All right, so real quick, it said, why did Claudius Caesar expel the Jews from Rome? Okay. It says, Luke says Aquila and Priscilla had recently come from Italy because Claudius had ordered all Jews to leave Rome. The Roman historian, all right, Suetonius, Life of Claudius, explains that Claudius expelled the Jews because they were constantly rioting and instigation, all right, of Christus, all right, Christus, okay, which he was trying to say Christos, which Hamasiach in the Hebrew, okay, Christos is the way of saying anointed in the Greek, okay, so it said Christus is almost certainly a confused reference to Christos, all right. It says the disturbance were likely conflicts between Jews who accepted Yahweh Shai as Messiah and those who did not. Okay, and as we can see, we've been reading in the book of Acts, man, and when Paul preached, there will be believers, and then there will be, naysayers, and there will be conflict, because you had a lot of people leaving, paganism and idol worship, leaving certain networks and groups and, following Yahweh Shai, okay, and then the teaching of the gospel was against, these false gods, these false idols, okay, and the doctrine Yahweh Shai, he's referred to as a king. He has a kingdom that's coming to the earth that's going to dominate the earth. Okay, so this doctrine was very controversial. As we went into John 7:7, you see they hate the followers of Yahweh Shai because of Yahweh Shai, because Yahweh Shai condemns this place, which Yahweh Shai comes with in the volume of the book. Okay, so the condemnation for these current world ages within the doctrine, within the gospel, became a problem for those current ages. Okay, to the point it made its way all the way up to the highest level of government, which was Caesar. Okay, And it said date. This edict is usually dated to AD 49. So the expulsion was not racial extermination, but a temporary political action to restore order. Okay, which they trying to water it down, you know. But yeah, they were just tired of the word, man. They tired of preaching, it was confounding, you know, the guys and the philosophers were being confounded, by the apostles, believers. Okay, these guys that they worship and these philosophies that they took to heart were being confounded. You see, just like now. Okay, even when you go matter of fact, let's go here. Look at that in Corinthians, because Corinthians was similar to Athens. They was big on philosophy and intellectualism, trying to be deep and mystical in the word. Okay, so when you go here, that's why this is written in the book of Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 4. It says, we use, this is in the NLT, it said, we use the Most High's mighty weapons, not worldly weapons, to knock down the strongholds of human reasoning and destroy false arguments. Okay? So the word was destroying, the reasoning of men. Men that thought they had it figured out, different philosophers and philosophies, poets and, stoic philosophers. And right, and this word was destroying all false arguments, man. Okay? And it was becoming the problem. And that's why even in 1 Corinthians, you see, I'll say the atmosphere of Athens and current. All right, you had Jake that was into the philosophies. That's why you get to 1 Corinthians. Okay, 1 Corinthians 1 and 18. The message of the cross is foolish to those who are headed for destruction. Okay, so Jake will hear the gospel and they will look at the gospel as if the gospel was foolish. Okay, not what they believe, not all the madness that they believe was foolish. They will believe that the gospel was the problem and the gospel was foolish. Okay, but it was meant to be foolish to those that were going to perish, those that were headed for destruction. Okay, but you have believers everywhere that they went as well. Okay, because the elect, this word is the power of Yahweh Bashem Shai, ain't no doubt about it. Okay, if it's meant, you know, for someone to believe, they're going to hear, they're going to receive this message with open ears. That's why Yahweh Shai will always say, those who have ears to hear, let them hear. Okay, because elect have those ears, those spiritual ears, to hear and understand, what they're hearing, to hear the voice of Yahweh Shai through the prophets, man. Verse 19 says, as the scriptures say, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and discard the intelligence of the intelligent, man. Okay, so this word was confounding all these deep niggas that were supposed to be so deep. Them niggas was popular. Everybody was listening to them niggas, man. But then that word came through, started breaking shit down. All right, start busting that madness down, man. Okay, verse 20. So where does this lead the philosophers, the scholars, and the world's brilliant debaters? The Most High has made the wisdom of this world look foolish. Okay, and there's no difference today, man. Esau and his tech giants and tech companies and New World Order and his science and all this technology and AI and the gospel is making this look foolish, man. What Esau even trying to pull off, man. Okay, the gospel is making this look foolish, knowing what Yahweh Shai is coming back with, man. Yahweh Shai coming back with all their power and their heavenly host, and Esau trying to throw this bullshit up. his new world order. Okay, technocracy. Okay, foolish as hell. But it's through the word, because the word is the only thing that's calling this thing out to be foolish. Okay, even these, alternative news outlets that speak against what this devil is doing, they don't speak against this as being foolish. Okay, you see, they're not uh, looking at this as a rebellion to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. They might look at it as them, getting freedoms taken away, okay, through the digital enslavement. But they're not looking at this as a pure rebellion to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, but it's the prophets that's calling it out, man. And calling it foolish, man. And when you go into the concept of it, it's extremely foolish what this man is trying to do, you know? So it's gonna make it to the point, okay, because this gospel is against his new world order. So we know it's gonna make it to the point where the government is gonna intervene, okay, with the ministry, man. Okay, the devil he has to make his move is written in prophecy, man. Okay. And you go to matter of fact, let's get there real quick since we're there. Look at this in the book of Second Ezra 16. Get to the point. Because this is when the devil, the script say he shall come down with great wrath. When you go into Second Ezra 16, it goes into details of that wrath. Okay, that the devil's going to come down with and who he's going to come down on mainly. This is the book of Second Ezra 16 and 7. It said, "For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord." Okay, and hopefully this is Jake in general. You see, because Jake was a nation that was made. Israel was a nation that was made to fear the Lord. Okay, so this is going into the time of Jacob's trouble, and in the midst of that, he's going to want to snuff out the prophets, man. He's going to want to eliminate and eradicate the prophets, man. Okay, but there's promise of standard to be lifted as well. See, the standard wasn't promised for that time. The apostle had powers, to do healings and, miracles. Okay, but it wasn't time for them to be raised up against this devil on that level. You see, this time the Lord is going to raise up a standard. There's going to be martyrs. Okay, so when that happens, we're not discouraged as if something is happening unexpected. No, that's a part of it. Okay, well, their standard being lifted is a part of it too. Okay, verse 71 says, "They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as a gold in the fire," man. So we got to be tried. We got to be tested. The Lord's going to see if we're authentic. Okay, the Lord's going to test us to see, if we've been authentic this whole time. Okay, and no one can finesse through Jacob's trouble through this last trial. Okay, if we BSing and made it this far, this gonna show it. This furnace that we're finna go through is gonna show. Okay, if we believe wholeheartedly, man. Okay, this is serious times we're coming into, man. This is that last trial, the hour of temptation. Okay, that's going to prove the elect. It's going to come out. We make it through this temptation. We're going to come out the other side, man. Is worthy. That gold tribe. And Lord will we endure, man. You sincere brothers, you sincere sisters, man. Okay, we have our ups and downs and setbacks and different little things or whatever it might be. Certain things don't go our way at the moment, man. But see what we're gonna realize too in the time of temptation. A lot of things that we harped on and made a big deal about. It wasn't even about nothing, man. It wasn't that big of a deal. Okay, it was really nothing. And that's why now, I like to look at things, well, in Jacob's trouble, is this going to be a big deal? You know, and look at everything from that perspective and focus on the things that's going to matter in the clutch, man. And that's our, our relationship with Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, being in good standards with our power. That's the only thing that's going to matter. All that other shit is not going to matter. Okay, your family mad at you because you ain't around as much. Okay, all right, and, the money you could have made, the opportunity, you might miss the money opportunity or whatever. None of that shit gonna matter, man. Okay, the only thing is the Lord, right? This, matter of fact, the next verse is the only thing that's gonna matter, man. Okay, whatever, because you can go on and on about, the particulars of little things, but the only thing that's gonna matter is the Lord and His favor and His mercy in that day. Okay, that's why you go to verse 7 and 4 says, "Hear, O ye my beloved, saith the Lord, behold, the days of trouble are at hand, but I will deliver you from the same. Be ye not afraid, neither doubt, for the Most High is your God, and the God of them who keep my commandments and precepts, saith the Lord power. Let not your sins weigh you down, and let not your iniquities lift themselves up," man. So, the stumbles, I say the ups and downs, the things that we go through, we can't let weigh us down. We won't make mistakes. We can't be perfect to everybody. We're not here to be perfect to everybody, man. Okay, we here to fight, man. We here to become this word. Okay, to conform to your shot. We here to conform to your shot. And there's gonna be mistakes on the way. People gonna be offended. Okay? Because everybody don't understand the mission. Speaking to you brothers, man. You men. Okay? Scripture say, remember ourselves, men, speaking to you brothers, man. People gonna be offended in how we move. They don't understand the mission, man, because we can't compromise the mission, man, for emotions. Okay? To make people comfortable. Nah, man, we're not here for that, man. Okay? We're here to conform to your shot. Okay? And really become this word that we're teaching and reading, man. So we're not gonna be perfect. Okay? We're not gonna be pleasing to everybody in every situation, man. As long as we're pleasing to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. And if we're pleasing to Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, we're going to be pleasing to those that matter. Okay? It's about who matter now, man. It ain't about, you see, we not politicians, man. Okay? We serving the king. You see? So let's go back here to the chat real quick. Oh, see, is it this one? Yep. So it says, so Paul, going back to the chat, so Paul stayed in current for a year and 6 months, teaching the word among them. So he was in current for a while, you know. It says, so this was one of Paul's longest stays in any city, was in current. It said roughly AD 50 through 52 during Paul's second missionary journey. This long stay reflects the strategic importance of current, all right, wealthy cosmopolitan, all right, cosmopolitans, like, and moral, influential. Because as we know, he had a time, with the Church of Corinth. It says strong opposition balanced by significant success. Okay, so he had his best times and worst times, and in current, dealing with the church, dealing with the population, and he went into a lot of things in the book of Corinthians. It's a heavy, heavy, heavy book. A lot of breakdowns. A lot of questions that arise in the church today. Those things are addressed in the book of Corinthians. You have the dealing with the unbelieving wife, unbelieving husband situation, food offered to idols, you know, the hat, teaching with your head covered, So there's a lot of instructions in the book of Corinthians, okay, that we apply today, okay. The woman, learning in silence, you know, so forth and so on. But it's a heavy book, some heavy breakdowns dealing with, the new bodies and immortality, and it's a heavy book, the books, because it's two parts dealing with the epistles of Corinthians. All right, it says it was tent making, because that was tent making. So as was tent making a lucrative business, and it said Paul worked as a tent maker, all right, with Aquila and Priscilla. It said tent making was a skilled artisan trade, not menial labor. Tents were used by soldiers, travelers, and merchants, markets, and festivals. Materials included leather, goat hair, especially Cilician cloth and linen. It says respectable and sustainable, but not luxurious. So I guess you can liken to like middle class, maybe. As a tent maker, a skilled trade person. Okay, it says comparable to a modern skilled trade person. All right, a leather worker, craftsman. Okay, so yeah, right, middle class. In the decent economy. Okay, because the economy of 2026, we know there. That's another topic. It said enough to support oneself and sometimes others, but not wealth building. Okay, it says so he had just enough. That's why Apostle Paul said, "Well, I know how to abound and be a base." Because when you go into it, said why Paul did it. It said to avoid financial dependence on new believers. Okay, First Thessalonians 2:9, to model humility and diligence, to remove any accusation of preaching for profit. So the Apostle Paul, he always put himself in a position to forward the gospel, man. Everything that Paul did was intentional. One thing as we go into these epistles and Acts, okay, you see the Apostle Paul was extremely intentional in everything he did. Everything he did, he was an opportunist when it came to forwarding the gospel, man. And the Lord, he put a mighty spirit on the apostle, man. Okay, you got Jake that disregard the Apostle Paul. Tripping, not in the spirit, man. Nigga that disregard the Apostle Paul and not in the spirit. Okay, Howard Shai personally set the Apostle Paul up, man, in his office, man. Okay, so if a nigga denounce you, Howard Shai, okay, that nigga is extremely off, man. That's wicked, man. But it says, why were the Jews expelled from Rome? Riots linked to disputes over Hamashiach. Okay. Um, yep. And see, in Rome, you best believe they had camps and street teaching. Okay, just like we have today. They were setting up camps. Okay, but say it was a very hostile environment because debates will break out. That's why in the book of Timothy, Apostle Paul dealing with Ephesus, because Timothy was over the church in Ephesus, and he told them, look, don't even debate them niggas, man. It's a waste of time, because Apostle Paul had been there and done it, so he wasn't speaking from lack of experience, okay, because establishing these churches and spreading his gospel, on his missions. Apostle Paul already had just dealing with these niggas, the Epicureans, the Stoics, different poets and all that. He had his run in with them niggas. He told Timothy, by the time he's up in age and establishing Timothy, he's telling him, look, don't even waste no time with them niggas, man. Just like our apostles and elders tell us today. Okay. Don't even waste no time because it's about the believers, man. We got, a network of believers that's sincere, you brothers, all right, and few sincere sisters, man. Okay. That's where our time and energy is geared towards. Okay. I here to debate these niggas, okay, about no goddamn hotel. Okay, and these niggas can never tell us nothing about what they really believe. There's no understanding. See, it's understood what we believe because it's consistent. Okay, and brothers are what, active. Okay, but you don't know. You can't run down what the Egyptologists believe. Okay, nobody can run that down. Okay, or whatever these niggas are into, the Moors, the 5%ers. Okay, no one can really just run down. Okay, what's the end game? We're telling you an end game. We telling you what we're telling you the things that are happening in real time and what is leading to the end game, the solution. Okay, the gospel is solution based. Okay, all this random, so-called knowledge, and you know, these deep sayings, and okay, it's just a bunch of random nothingness, man. That's why Apostle Paul told Timothy, look, don't argue with them niggas, man. Okay, let them niggas be, man. So going back in the book of Acts, it said Acts 18:3. It said Paul lived and worked with them, for they were tent makers, just as he was. Each Sabbath found Paul at the synagogue trying to convince the Jews and Greeks alike. All right. So those that know that there was Israelites and those that didn't. All right, but these are all Israelites, man. It says, and after Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, Paul spent all his time preaching the word. He testified to the Jews that Yahushua was the Messiah. But when they opposed and insulted him, Paul shook the dust from his clothes and said, your blood is upon your own heads. I am innocent. From now on, I will go preach to the Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, man. Okay? Because the Israelite foreigners, they hit the ground running on fire with faith, man. Okay, but a lot because you had Israel as we go through the book of Acts, we seeing that there's a lot of circumcision that believed as well, man. Okay, so it wasn't no blanket thing or just none of the circumcision believed. A lot of the circumcision was being converted because Paul, when he would move around, he would go to the synagogue first, and he would scrape up, a few believers out of the synagogue of the circumcision, and then them niggas would cut up, and then Apostle Paul, all right, throw the finger to them niggas and get out of there, man. All right, you damn them niggas, just dusting the clothes off. Okay, well, there was a commandment of Yahushua. If a place didn't receive you, you shake the dust, man. And now their judgment is between them and the Most High, and that goes back to Ezekiel as well. Okay, this book of Ezekiel, chapter 3. Okay, this goes back to the Old Testament, man. Once we tell Jake, okay, and Jake got this. This is Ezekiel 3:17. It says, son of man, I have appointed you as a watchman for Israel. Whenever you receive a message from me, warn people immediately, man. That's what we do. As we read, as we study, we watch videos, we watch the news, whatever. When we see prophecy, man, we immediately run with it and warn our people, like, look, this is where we at. The Lord walking this place down. This is where we at. Okay? According to this, and this, and according to this prophecy, this prophecy, this is where we at. You know? So as watchmen, hey, we're doing what we're tasked to do. Okay? And it says, if I warn the wicked, saying, you are under the penalty of death, but you fail to deliver the warning, they will die in their sins, and I will hold you responsible for their deaths. Okay, if you warn them and they refuse to, and then there's also too, if you're teaching false doctrine, you're not warning with the warning of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay, if your MOTB doctrine is off, well, you're not warning according to the true doctrine, to the true warning, because you're giving the wrong message. You're giving a false alarm. You're not telling them what to look out for. Okay, so if you have a false doctrine, then you're not giving the right warning, and their blood, all right, is going to be on your hand. Everyone that follows you, their blood is on your hand. Okay. Verse 19 says, if you warn them and they refuse to repent and keep on sinning, they will die in their sins, but you will have saved yourself because you obeyed me. And that's what we're doing, man. We're getting the blood off our hands, man. No one can say they wasn't warned, they didn't know prophecy was happening. Nah, you knew. Okay, this is like a 24/7 feed, between brothers going live, brothers putting up pre-record videos, brothers. Hey, this is a 24/7 feed that's going out. This is non-stop flowing living waters, man. Non-stop flowing warnings, instructions, and righteousness. Okay, every aspect of the gospel, every aspect of prophecy, man. Okay, so if you are under this, well, you can't be under no cloak. The cloak has been stripped off. Now it's on you, but we obey. So all we can do, brothers, is keep obeying every day. Keep warning. All right. And we're not here for views, man. As long as we're in the clear, we want to be in the clear. You see? It's a beautiful thing to see, brothers. All right, you few sisters, man, that are here and growing and new, brothers and sisters come in and sincerely believe, and that's a beautiful thing. Okay? That's a beautiful thing. As the scriptures say, the angels rejoice when one lost, comes back, and that's at the front. Okay, that's the top priority why we do what we do, man. Okay, with those that don't receive, that's on them. Okay, and we just want to be in the clear. Okay, and this ain't about being cute on the internet, being popular, man. If we in the clear, it's gonna far surpass, because it's gonna be niggas with millions, thousands of views, man. The Lord gonna put to death, man, in a horrific way. Playing, not warning, they not in the clear. Okay. So let's go. Acts 18:7 said, then he left and went to the home of Titius Justus, a Gentile who worshiped the Most High and lived next door to the synagogue. It said Crispus, the leader of the synagogue, and everyone in his household believed in the Lord. All right, showing you that this is, you had Jakes that believe, man. Okay, it said many others in Corinth also heard Paul, became believers, and were baptized. Okay, so the church of Corinth, beginning to get established. Okay, the believers, they're waking up in Corinth. Okay, verse 9, it says, one night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision, told him, don't be afraid, speak out, don't be silent. Okay, and that reminds me of Isaiah 62, man. And we know, we're on the threat of imminent death. We're on the threat of losing our freedom. We can lose everything. We can be separated from our families, okay, for teaching his word, man. But the Most High told us, he gave us command to keep not silent, man. Okay, and you niggas that took the bad and sold out, you kept silent. Because if you're sounding a false alarm, this is the same thing. Well, that's worse than being silent. Okay, because you're giving the wrong information, man. You're misinforming, and that's worse than being silent, man. But now, man, the Lord told us, hey, just speak out, don't be afraid. And our courage comes from our power, not from us, man. Isaiah 62:6 says, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, keep not silence. Okay? Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence, man, and give him no rest till he establish, until he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth, man. So the Lord has set brothers on their watch. Going back to how the spirit of wisdom is a pure influence. The Holy Spirit is a pure influence from Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. So the Most High has breathed a breath into his men, and he has put watchmen on the wall. Okay? You got multiple watchmen on the wall, and everybody can't be at the same spot. So you got different viewpoints. Okay, as we're watching. Okay, so you're getting the 360 report. Okay, then circumspect, circumspect. All right, circle, going to circle, spec means to inspect. So you're getting that 360, all right, spiritual, circumspection. Okay, so everything that's going on around us in the spirit, there's watchmen set up to report, and the Lord set that up. You see, because the Lord is setting his people up to win. The elect is being set up to win, man. Okay, but it says, hold their peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence. Okay, ye that make mention of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, keep not silence, and give him no rest till he establish, until he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth, man. To we're chains and on no chariots, man. Okay, the end game. You see, the doctrine has an end game, man. We're not just here to be seen. Okay, no, it has a true end game, a true solution to the madness of the earth, man. Okay, so going back into it, it says, okay. All right, Acts 18 and 9, and it said, then spake the Lord to Paul in the night by a vision. He said, be not afraid, but speak and hold not thy peace, for I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee, for I have much people in this city. So he got the confirmation like you good. And see, that's the thing, man. We out here and we have the protection of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Because as you can see, you can be a sovereign nation with a military, and these devils can come snatch you up. Okay? But under the protection of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, the devil can do nothing until the Lord give this man, all right, the green light to do what he do, to fulfill prophecy. Even then, the fulfilling prophecy, man. Because he's going to come get certain brothers, man. Okay? But there's a fulfillment of prophecy, man. We've been warned about these things, and that's what the Lord allowing this devil to do. Okay, but the Lord, until the Lord wants the famine of the word not gonna happen. Until the Lord, wants brothers to get snatched up. Okay, for their testimony. Okay, even if it's to the point of being beheaded. Okay, that's what the Lord wanted. Okay, that's what the Lord allowed. You see, but they ain't nothing these devils can do. Against the Lord's men. Okay, as we under the protection of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. It's all about what the Lord wants to happen, what he allows to happen. Okay, he gave Jeremiah the reinsurance. Okay, because Esau been wanting to come and make a move on his word, man. Okay, this is Jeremiah 15 and 20. It says, and I will make thee unto this people a fenced brazen wall, and they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I'm with thee to save thee and to deliver thee, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai, man. So the Lord is with us, man. Our power is with us. Okay. This is not we just not out here, man. All right, we're not naked. Okay. We have a power. Okay, the scripture says the present help in the time of trouble, man. We have a very active and involved and engaged power. Okay. They're shielding us as we are doing his word, man. We're under the banners, the protection of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay. And it says, and I will deliver thee out of the hand of the wicked and redeem thee out of the hand of the terrible, man. Okay? So we got a great deliverance, man, because even in death, we're going to be resurrected. And okay? We're going to be on those chairs with everybody else, man. Be on those chariots first, man. Those that have to take their death going to be on those chariots first, man. First class. Okay? And those that have to take the death will be waiting on everybody else. Already smiling and dancing, man. Okay? Watching the whore be judged. Okay? And Yahweh shall conquer the nations, man. Front row seats to that, man. You know? And we only have one opportunity to be a part of that, man. Okay? And this is what we're grinding for, man. All right, so let's go back to the book of Acts 18. All right, Acts 18:11 is that he continued there a year and 6 months teaching the word of the Most High among them. And when Gallio was deputy of Achaia, the Jews made insurrection with one accord against Paul and brought him to the judgment seat, saying, this fellow persuaded men to worship the Most High contrary to the law. And when Paul was now about to open his mouth, Gallio said unto the Jews, if it were a matter of wrong or wicked lewdness, O ye Jews, reason what let me get this in the team. Starting verse 12 again, said, but when Gallio became governor of Achaia, some Jews rose up together against Paul. You know, them niggas of the circumcision was, I say them niggas was ravenous, you know, to say the least. And it says, and brought him before the governor for judgment. It's gonna be niggas on the front line. Can't say it enough. It's gonna be niggas and the nigga woman that's gonna play a major part when the prophets start being accused. It said they accused Paul of persuading people to worship the Most High in ways that are contrary to our law. Okay, they were trying to say that Paul was destroying the law. Okay, he wasn't destroying the law. He was just showing that through Yahweh, okay, the justification by the law is null and void. Being justified by the law, okay, that standard has been removed through the sacrifice of Yahweh. Okay, he wasn't promoting the void, making the law void. Okay, or to just do away with the law. You see, that wasn't what Paul was pushing. But see, these niggas were trying to use, and these niggas know that they were just against Yahweh, man. Okay, they were just against, all right, the grace that Yahweh was having and the mercy he was having on Israelite foreigners. And them niggas felt some type of way about these jakes that, okay, were likening to Gentiles and Greeks their whole life, and now they are part of the same inheritance as the circumcision. Okay, them niggas felt some type of way. Niggas in their emotions. Okay, just like Jake knows certain things, they know we not teaching to go grape no 12-year-old girl, man. Okay, they know we not teaching that. Okay, but them niggas just feel some type of way. You see, and want to be disruptive, and it's just these same niggas coming back, man. I said, but just as Paul started to make his defense, Gallio turned to Paul's accusers and said, listen, ye Jews, if there were a case involving some wrongdoing or a serious crime, I will have a reason to accept your case. So the spirits on the judge are like, look, man, I don't have time for you niggas, man. Okay? Because people would peep that these niggas were being petty, man. Okay? But he said, but since it is merely a question of words and names in your, all right, Israelite law, take care of it yourselves. I refuse to judge such matters. and he threw them out of the courtroom. All right. So the Lord had the judge not even listen to them niggas crying and complaining, man. Whining ass niggas, man. Okay, he said the crowd then grabbed Sosthenes, the leader of the synagogue, and beat him right there in the courtroom. But Gallio paid no attention. Paul stayed. All right, so they beat, Jake in the courtroom, man. These niggas here, savages, man. Okay, he said Paul stayed in current for some time after that, then said goodbye to the brothers and sisters and went to nearby Cenchrea. There he shaved his head according to Israelite custom, marking the end of a vow. Then he set sail for Syria, taking Priscilla and Aquila with him. They stopped first at the port of Ephesus, where Paul left the others behind. While he was there, he went to the synagogue to reason with the Jews. So now he's in Ephesus, okay, which you get the epistle Ephesians. And this is where Timothy will become the overseer of the church of Ephesus. It says, as he left, however, he said, I will come back later, the most high willing. Then he said, sail for Ephesus. The next stop was at the port of Caesarea. From there, he went up and visited the church of Jerusalem and then went back to Antioch. After spending some time in Antioch, Paul went back through Galatia and uh, uh, Phrygia, visiting and strengthening all the believers. Okay. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, an eloquent speaker who knew the scripture well. Yep. So I can read that again. Acts 18:24. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, an eloquent speaker who knew the scriptures well, had arrived in Ephesus from Alexander in Egypt. He had been taught the way of the Lord, and he taught others about Yahushua with an enthusiastic spirit and with accuracy, so he was like a precept guy. However, he knew only about John's baptism. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him preaching boldly in the synagogue, they took him aside and explained the way of the Most High even more accurately. Apollos had been thinking about going to Achaia. So you had Priscilla, okay, and Aquila, which Aquila was the man. So Aquila was the one teaching, okay. And she was probably there aiding, cooking, being the woman in the situation, getting the tea, getting the tea ready. You see, making bread, and Aquila was, breaking it down concerning Yahushua. Okay. And then it says, it said Apollos had been thinking about going to Achaia, and the brothers and sisters in Ephesus encouraged him to go. They wrote to the believers in Achaia asking them to welcome him. When he arrived there, he proved to be of great benefit to those who, by the Most High's grace, had believed. He refuted the Jews with powerful arguments in public debate using scriptures. He explained to them that Yahushua was the anointed, was the Messiah. Okay. So that concludes, chapter 18. Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kakudash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom.